Welcome to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, the #1 resource for automotive sales professionals, managers, and owners to learn how to make money, accumulate wealth, and to all out ball out in the auto industry. And now your hosts, Sean V. Bradley and L.A. Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen,
say Autoweb is in your building.
Hey.
At least it should be. A VinCue, what's up? Sean Bradley.
where you at, homie? You in the building?
I'm right here, brother.
Hey, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. Had to take a second, turn his mic on, you know what I'm saying? Because got to keep it all in check. What's going on, everyone? L.A. Williams, the blind phone master, here with you, and the millionaire car salesman right here, Mr. Sean V. Bradley. We ready to rock and roll, man. We got a phenomenal show planned for you today, man. First of all,
America, listen to me. Wait, stop. I'm telling you, America right now, LA's drunk on power right now because he's been feeling himself on Clubhouse. He's getting the buzz on the radio. So now he's cut my mic on and off and everything like that. I got witnesses. I'm just saying, LA. I mean,
it's all good. So who's the witness? We got a witness today? I hear somebody laughing.
Oh, we got somebody. Okay, so should we just bring him in right now?
Well, you know what? Here's what I want to say. Because last week we talked about the top 10 automotive partners to have in 2021, right? That was the thing. And it was so crazy. I think folks been listening to the podcast, Sean, because right now we have the vice president, the senior vice president of operations, sales and operations right here with us, Mr. Todd Dearborn. You were listening to the show, Todd. What's been going on, man? You just
wait a minute, of internet brands, a multi-billion-dollar company. So Todd, you're on.
What's going on, brother?
You guys are making me sound so good. Listen to you. Listen, of course I listen to you guys. Sean and I have only been doing business together since Sean? It was the late 90s, back when Cars Direct started and, internet sales was just starting to be a thing. There weren't even internet departments, and you and I were getting together figuring out how to move some metal online.
I know we are going into our 22nd year. When I was still an internet director, yeah, man, that's how long I've been rocking with Todd Dearborn from Cars Direct days, man. But thank God, both of us, our careers have had an upward trajectory. You, like we just announced, are the senior vice president of sales and operation of a multi-billion-dollar company. And folks, that's not easy in the automotive industry. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of companies that come and go. And for Todd to have such longevity and evolution in his career, one of the reasons why we brought him on is because the industry has been screaming the praises of Cars Direct and Auto Credit Express. That's how they made it to the top 10 companies to be partnered with in 2021. Mm-hmm. Now, so Todd, before we get into some of the amazing stuff that that you're doing and that you're into, I'm really curious because I've known you for a long time, but I don't know all the details. Can you just share with our audience, your come up, how did you get into the automotive industry? And then how did you go from whatever you started at to being the senior VP of sales and operations for a multi-billion-dollar company? That's pretty badass.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's been one of those careers where you don't necessarily set out that way. I grew up back east, grew up in Maryland, went to Towson University, and decided that after I graduated, I wanted to move out west. And I moved to Denver, Colorado. And I started my career with a company that a lot of people in the automotive industry know, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Which is kind of known for, from a management perspective, really cutting your teeth. They teach you everything about how to run a business. I had to learn everything from the ground up, from how to build an office, how to hire people, how to, in the early stages, I opened a branch in downtown Denver that became the most profitable branch within 6 months in the Denver group for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And it didn't exist. The building didn't exist. We had to go, get zoning and permits and, work with construction people. But so then, you're sort of off and running. And, that company does a really, really good job of, one, indoctrinating you into the automotive industry, but then two, helping you understand everything that goes into a true P&L and how to make a business profitable. And then you really get into that whole understanding that is, hey, if I want to start earning a commission and earning more and more money, and it's based on the profitability of the business, you really look at, that P&L and say, hey, what does my overhead look like? What do expenses look like? If I'm going to advertise, I need a really good return on my investment. And, so it really kind of got my career going. And so in the late 90s, carsdirect.com was a company that was just starting, an online car brokerage. And I was hired as an outside salesperson. And so I was living in Denver at the time. And I kind of got ahead of myself. I started and was signing a lot of dealers up. For, again, the basic premise was we had a website and we would pre-negotiate prices of cars and then we would mark them up on the website. And so back then there was no internet department. And so we would go to a fleet manager and I would say to that fleet manager, hey, if I bring you 3 cars a month, what does that mean from a cost standpoint? If I bring you 5 cars, if I bring you 10 cars. And so the fleet manager loved the idea that we were executing the entire transaction online. And I mean, we were literally doing it all. We were writing the paper. We had a deal with Cap One who wrote most of it. But then we were doing service contracts. We were selling low jacks. It didn't matter if there was a piece of profitability that went into the front end sale of the car. We were working to do that online. And the fleet department loved it. We were bringing them a done deal. Really, all they had to do was walk around with the consumer. And the way the website worked was with the pre-negotiated price, let's say it was a Honda Accord, and they were giving us cars at invoice. We would load it to the website at $500 over invoice, and that was our margin. That was the money we made. And so the fleet guy said, look, he's bringing me 10 deals a month. Yeah, I can do Accords at invoice. And the consumer would get online and say, wow, 500 over invoice, I might be able to get that myself, but why worry about negotiating that? Why don't I just do that now? And so it was the best of both worlds. There was a dealer who didn't feel like there was a service they were paying for, and there was a consumer who said, hey, there's a ton of value here. But so for us, that wasn't the most interesting piece. It didn't scale all that well.
Todd, wait a minute. Let me just jump in here because, again, people might not know this, but at one point, Cars Direct, the direct model that you're speaking of, you were one of the largest dealerships in the United States. I mean, Longo Toyota has always been known as the #1 dealership for a single point location. But correct me if I'm wrong, at one point, you guys were pumping about 2,000 units a month out of the Cars Direct model. Is that correct?
Sean, that's right. We had gotten a dealer's license. We actually bought one from Potemkin out in New York City. And once we got that dealer's license, we became a dealership. And yeah, we were doing over 2,000 units a month online, and we were doing it across the country. Yeah, and so we had pre-negotiated prices in literally every market.
Wait a minute. So again, here's the thing that most Americans that are in the automotive industry don't know because they don't know their history. And because of the attrition and the turnover, they don't understand this. At one point, about 20 years ago, or 19 years ago, around there, 19, 20 years ago, Cars Direct had a centralized BDC and was selling 2,000 units from one centralized location without any inventory, without any service departments, without having any people. So what I want to just stress to the automotive industry of today in 2021 is that the massive experience of Cars Direct is unprecedented because there's no other company, no other lead source provider that had their own dealer's license and that was doing front and back total deals virtually and not at the volume that you guys were doing. Am I correct?
That's exactly right. And what we figured out, and it took us a minute, was that we actually had to get out of the way. We needed to get out of the middle of that transaction because as we talked to our dealers, the real value there was in connecting that consumer with a dealer. And so back then, the thought process had always been, how do we shorten this transaction for the consumer? And really, we wanted to play a different role. And that's when things really started to take off for us. It was when we figured out how to be a better advocate for both consumer and dealer, how to break down the communication walls. And because that's really what both sides wanted. What you wanted was a consumer to say, I'm afraid to get into this negotiation battle, and so therefore I'm afraid to give my information. And you had a dealer saying, look, I want to give the consumer a good deal, but they're afraid to tell me the information I need in order to put a good deal together for them. And so we were acting as this concierge on behalf of the consumer. But when things really started taking off for us is when we figured out how to do that better, how to be that liaison, how to be in the middle, but how to scale using technology. And that's where we started to really grow. We were a new car company. Then we became a used car company. And, similar to what might be an auto trader, cars.com, online used listings were the next natural progression for us. And then when things really blew up was when we figured out Subprime. When we understood what was happening in the automotive industry and the underserved community that was someone who has bad credit that needs to be matched up with the right dealer, boy, when we figured that out, that's when things really, really started to come together for us. We bought a company called 1-800-Communications. And we had these vanity phone numbers like 1-800-approved. And so essentially what would happen is a dealer would advertise the phone number, and then our call center that we were just talking about, that virtual BDC, if you will, would talk to the consumer, and they would validate that consumer and then turn it into the traditional lead that we see today. And that was the beginning of the subprime business for us. And then we figured out that for us, the hard part there was we had to rely on the dealers spending the advertising dollars on their own. And so somewhat we were a victim to when they decided to do that. And we wanted to take a little more of the control back. But so that was the real start of us figuring out, how do we profile the online consumer to attract that person who does need help, who does have bad credit, who needs to understand and get financing first, then figure out a dealer to work with and the right vehicle for them. And we acquired Auto Credit Express. And so they had been doing only subprime for 20 years themselves. The company was created by a dealership group out in the Detroit metro area. And so they had real car dealers that had started that company and really understood special finance.
Wait a minute.
And
Todd, I'm going to jump in here because when we talk about special finance, I'm very passionate about special finance. I never was the person that was spinning the paper, but I basically was all about special finance lead gen. I was doing this for 20 years ago, with Auto Credit Approved. If you remember my company that I had, I incorporated the same day as Dealer Synergy. And what I've always found in my 20 plus career, 22 years now in the automotive industry, there are a lot of people that are anti-special finance because I don't know why. Like they tell me because they think that special finance is for like people that are just horrible people that don't pay their bills and it's brain damage. And I don't believe that. I've actually, used to be part of the World of Special Finance magazine, writing for them. I've been to the special finance conferences. I've actually co-presented with like Greg Goebel, who's like my counterpart for special finance. He's like a brilliant man. And the numbers are staggering. To my understanding, subprime is classified as, non-prime, which would mean anything that's like under like a 650 or something like that. What's your definition of subprime?
Well, before you answer, Todd, I do want to have Karen Bradley come in and talk a little bit about a buyer source provider who really does an excellent job. Karen?
Attention auto dealers. You need an opportunity to do business. Autoweb is one of the largest suppliers of high quality leads. I mean, high quality buyers. At a 10% closing ratio, you will be at less than $190 per car sold. Don't just settle for what you get. Autoweb can fully customize your results through targeted markets and/or zip codes. And as a partner, you will get premium placement within search results. Who better to do that than literally the people that invented automotive internet sales? If you want to sell more cars more often and more profitably, then you need Autoweb.
You absolutely do. So Todd, tell us, is subprime under 650, 640? Break it down to us.
I think you're really close. We talk around the 620 mark.
620, okay.
That number has been changing a little bit now since the pandemic. Our research is telling us that the subprime pool is starting to grow. There was a little bit of a delay from what everybody thought. It took a little more time because of the money that was coming from the government. And obviously there's been a new stimulus that's just launched. They're talking about another one yet behind it. What that did was delay for just a little bit kind of the growth of this subprime pool. On one end of it, you have people whose credit who had been actually improving over years, right. And that pool was shrinking, but then coronavirus hit. And now what we can see, and so if everybody goes back to 2008, 2009, when the economy crashed, the same thing happened. And we saw lenders get scared to just even lend. It's a different environment today. They're not as worried about the asset. They went through it once and they sort of figured that part of it out.
So Todd, I want to clear the definition for our audience, which is all automotive professionals, but even in our industry, there's confusion. So if you're at 620, let's use that. But here's data, and this is right before the pandemic. This is 2020 data, okay? And this is coming, from like Greg Goebel's people and Harleen and them. I'll never forget this. This blew me away. That over 73 or 75% of all used cars that are financed in the United States are subprime deals. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, it's a big number, and it's something that always surprises everybody. When we talk to dealers every day, they'll say to us, oh, yeah, I don't do subprime. And we'll ask three questions and find out that, oh, yes, you do.
Exactly.
Right? Everybody does subprime.
So that's my point that I wanted you to, I was trying to lead you for you to say that because listen, dealers, managers, listen to this. You guys say you don't do subprime, but you do. There's a difference. You might not proactively seek the subprime people, but if you're financing used cars, chances are I'm positive that you are doing special finance or subprime financing deals. So my whole thing is, that's one point I want to make. The second point is this, is that especially now in the climate there's a lot of people that make a lot of money or have access to a lot of money that have bad credit, whether it's because of the pandemic, whether it's because of a divorce, whether it's because of medical bills. I mean, just think about it. But these people actually have down payment and stroke to put down. One of the challenges with special finance to some dealers that are not trained and fluent in the language of subprime is that they're not good about getting down payment. And so follow me on this. If you are not targeting the right people, if all you're targeting are, to your point, not you, Todd, but like the America's point, of the bottom of the barrel people that can't pay their bills, then it's never going to work. But that's not subprime. Real subprime is what we just defined. It just means the opposite of prime. It means you don't have perfect credit. And most Americans, especially now in the climate, don't have perfect credit. So instead of being reactionary and not prepared, I suggest that dealers respect and understand the value of special finance and be proactive with it. Todd, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Let's talk for a second about gross monthly income. It's something where dealers are constantly surprised at what the average gross monthly income of a subprime consumer is. For us, we're doing 250,000 inquiries from consumers who want to buy a car on a monthly basis.
Wow.
Sean, what do you think the gross monthly income is of those people?
I'm going to just guess $2,500.
Brother, you're very close. Obviously, you're in the industry and you know these things. It is actually a hair higher. It's probably a little bit closer to $3,000 for us. And so when we talk to dealers across the country, almost every market, they would say, I'm good at 1,500 GMI. You get a little bit lower than that, and it starts to get a little iffy for the lenders, for the largest group of lenders. You know, Credit Acceptance, Westlake, Exeter. There's some others that could be, you know, able to work with you, and maybe somebody that has a repo, a recent repo. But at the end of the day, on average, that's what that number is. And so I think it's exactly what you said is, people have an idea of what subprime is and what average gross monthly income is. It's actually a lot higher than I think most understand. And, you know, the low end in Los Angeles and in San Francisco is probably a little bit closer to $2,000. But literally everywhere else in the country, if you're at 1,500 GMI, like that's kind of the lower end, but they're still good. They'll do those deals all day long.
Yeah, I think a lot of people listening to this are going to be shocked that you just said that out of 250,000 inquiries, that on average, you know, the GMI is closer to $3,000, because we know damn well there's a lot of BDC reps all around the United States that don't even make $3,000 a month. So put that into perspective. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, that's strong. The next thing that I would say is that I want you to kind of share with us some realities. Okay, I don't want to talk about how with lenders or inventory. We're going to get to that in a couple minutes, but I just want to get to the punchline so people have a reason to listen to the rest of this podcast. How much money can you make? Because I want, like, can you you don't have to list a name of a dealership or dealer group, but let's just say that a dealership that's trained properly, has the right quality subprime traffic, they have the right process, the right inventory, the right banks, yada yada yada. Can you give an estimate of the gross potential for a store or group?
Well, and let's talk again about just the online, right? We know that over the years, online has become an area that gives dealers anxiety because, they took all the front end profit out of the sale. It's not, the grosses aren't as good as they used to be. Well, one of the places that you can still continue to earn a very high grosses within subprime. And, that's where it's at. And the amount of work that needs to go into it, we talk about the three legs of the stool, right? We talk about the lender, we talk about the inventory, and then we talk about that consumer profile. And you have to really match those three pieces together. But once you do, when you understand, and there's some really good CRMs, one of the best, ProMax out there has a great name within the subprime industry, does a nice job of showing you, here's the inventory that matches this consumer profile the best. And when you pull in that lender information, where you're going to get the highest gross. Now, what do those numbers look like? We're talking about some pretty high grosses, Sean. For me, we talk in averages around 3,500. It's actually much higher than that. What we're hearing from dealers, the grosses that they're making. And again, it depends on the consumer. What a lot of dealers don't understand, what a lot of people don't know, is you can actually make a much higher gross in a lot of cases working with the captive finance arm. If you're a Kia dealer and you're using Kia Finance, and let's talk about, an 8% interest rate, 7.5 to 9, somewhere in that range, dealers are making unbelievable grosses. But then they'll see another lender who, talk about clubbing the consumer over the head. Like we're talking about 26, 27, 28%, but the dealer isn't making as much money. And so that's one of the things that we found very interesting is we've got Kia dealers, Hyundai dealers, Mitsubishi dealers, Chrysler Dodge brand dealers that are doing so well using just the captive finance arm, and what are less restrictions on their ability to make a big gross and make more money. So it really is it's a different industry that people don't really understand as well as they should.
Let me just tell you my experience. When I worked at Pine Belt, you remember when I worked at Pine Belt, Nissan, Kia, Cadillac, Bill Thompson was the special finance, director there. We had Christina Melendi, who's now the GSM in Freehold right now at Freehold Hyundai and Freehold Chrysler. And we were pushing at Pine Belt probably about 75, 80 subprime deals at over 4 G's a copy. Right now, my clients that are active in special finance, they're doing, especially during the pandemic, most dealers right now, the grosses are up. Right now, most dealers, the grocers are up, and because of the pandemic and inventory and things like that. So I would estimate right now from the Dealer Synergy Network, it's at least 4 Gs. I know that Franca Vidal is the head of our customer service division at Dealer Synergy. Her husband, Billy Van Vakitas, I've been friends with him for 26 years. He's a manager at an independent dealership. They're doing over $5,000+ per copy. Now, again, I'm not suggesting that you're just going to randomly start special finance and do 5 Gs a copy. But if you start building the department the right way, and you have those, like you said, those 3 legs that you talk about, and you figure the Da Vinci Code out of this, you have massive gross potential. And I do want to share with you what you said about ProMax. Look, I give ProMax a lot of shit sometimes because they're a little bit antiquated technology compared to other CRMs. But when it comes to special finance, Todd, you're absolutely right. There's still to this day, which I don't know how it doesn't happen. The one thing that I loved about using ProMax, and still today, is it's like DealerTrack. You turn around, you have a prospect. Let's just say that LA Williams submits a special finance credit application. I'm going to have all my banks, my subprime banks, my lending institutions networked inside of ProMax. It's going to cross-reference that particular prospect's credit score and credit situation against my inventory and all my lenders. And I could just program into ProMax saying, I want you to just pick the top 3 or 5 vehicles that I'm going to max gross with. So when I used to do special finance, it wasn't like I'd be running around the lot. I would basically say to my prospect, I've got great news for you. Here's the 3 vehicles that you qualify for. Which one would you like to drive home today? And those 3 vehicles, because ProMax made it so easy, it was the technology, to your point. So I just wanted to just reinforce what you said. I would agree. Okay, so now let's just get into this. There's a lot of money that could be made. Let's put it into perspective. This is coming from Greg Goebel. And this is like several years old. So I don't know what the new data is right now, but approximately what I'm finding is very similar internet closing ratios from like regular internet leads. So I know that there's a range between an OEM lead versus a third-party lead or aggregated lead versus a lead off your website. But let's just say that if we put in the middle around 10% closing ratio for a traditional internet purchase request, what I'm seeing is that if we are getting 100 subprime credit applications or credit leads, that it's very similar. Would you agree with that or disagree with that? I want because you run the largest, most powerful special finance lead generating service. So what is your closing ratio statistics that you'd share with us?
Well, I would agree, but I would agree with some qualifications. So here's some of the things we needed to figure out. So one of the things we need to figure out was dealers are getting so many leads that they needed to figure out how to prioritize better. And so here's some of what we went to work on. And we've done a lot of this just even during the pandemic. But so it was, first of all, engagement. And so what we understand about the subprime consumer is they're mobile centric, right? Now, everybody knows everybody's moved to their mobile device. But when you're talking to the subprime consumer, they're willing to do a lot with the mobile device. So let me tell you just a little bit of what they're willing to do. So first of all, we started to engage with them via text message to figure out who was just talking back to us, right? Because that's the first tier of engagement is, I just want to know there's a breathing body on the other end and it's somebody that's ready to buy a car right now. And so we started asking them some very basic questions online. Then once we figured out that we had that consumer and that level of engagement, and we're talking some 60% of our consumers just immediately started using text to talk to us. Then we moved to the next step, which was, well, let's see what else we can get them to do. And so then we started asking them for steps. And so right now we have consumers giving us proof of insurance on their mobile phone. And then we had them giving us driver's license. And then we moved on to proof of income. And that was really the toughest one for us. We put the driver's license, we put insurance to the side. We went to income and said, we know this is what the dealer is really more interested in. Let's see if we can get 30 days worth of pay stubs from the consumer. So they're taking a picture of these pay stubs. They submit them to us using their mobile phone. We then process them using our own technology. And we also, if our technology doesn't catch it, we use our own BDC, who then calls that consumer to verify what we're looking at. And we're now sending that through the CRM to the dealer. So a dealer gets a lead for a subprime consumer, And then they get a little paperclip and they click on it and they can see the proof of income. Why are our closing ratios so high? It's because we found the consumers who are ready to go right now and the ones who qualify. And when you think about a dealer, and let's just, again, go back to the pandemic, they don't have as many people working at the store as they used to. And so the ability for us to help bring some efficiency into the dealership, to do a little bit of that, a little more of that BDC type work and engaging with the consumer, it helps you identify the people who are really ready to go right now. So it doesn't just happen, because we're the biggest, we're the best, we had the biggest reach. And another piece of
wait, you're killing
well.
me. No, wait, Todd, there's so much. Like I want to dissect some of the stuff you said. Okay, so no, that's clarity that I wasn't 100% in the know of. So that's amazing. So can you give me the number approximately? Would you say it's 10% or 12%? What is the national average closing ratio for ACE leads, for Auto Credit Express leads?
I'm probably the most comfortable right around that 10 to 11% number. Again, you have people who come in who are the very best at what they do.
They're going to take higher.
That are much higher, right? But then you also are going to have some that are the toe dippers that we're trying to teach how to do subprime. They're the ones that we evangelize, dealer synergy, and we'll say, look, you need some help in learning how to do this the right way. And there's some that, that will tell us, look, we're at 2%, we're at 3%. Even they will tell you, though, hey, we're making great grosses. We love the product, but we try to teach them, hey, there's a lot further you can go. You can do a lot better here.
But the point for the audience, for the dealers to listen to, is that you're at freaking 11%. So now, approximately how much do special finance leads cost? Auto Credit Express leads. So just a range, approximate. There's a point. I want to show ROI.
Our national average right now is about $25. There's some places like Seattle that are just nuts. There's such a competitive environment there and a lack of that subprime consumer, and they're just rabid for them. We're a little bit higher in those markets. We're probably closer to about $70 in Seattle, but then we're also as low as, we could be, $18 in some of the markets in the South. If you look at Alabama, Kentucky, some of the Florida markets where you have a ton of subprime, then there's a lot of supply, right? And so we have to cut through that number supply to find the right consumer.
Let's use that number, Todd, that you're saying, because this is good. I want our listeners to just, again, I don't care what you're doing in the dealership, stop, drop, and roll. Listen. So if you purchased 100 leads for $2,500, we're talking about, Todd's saying he's very comfortable with an 11% closing ratio, which means you're looking at 11 cars times approximately $3,500 a copy. It could be more. It could be $4,500, $5,000, but let's just say $3,500.
Again, it depends. Yeah, it depends on if you know what you're doing, right? Yeah, when you know what you're doing, that number can really sing.
But dealers, listen to the math. For a $2,500 investment, you are able to gross approximately $38,500. So before we go, I want to take a step away from special finance for a second and just talk about ROI. Because Todd, one of my most frustrating things as a high-level consultant is evaluating, doing ROI assessments for marketing, advertising. And I talk to dealers, and what they're doing is they're spending money. I got a dealer, I'm not going to mention a name, that spent $24,000. You know who they are, because I talked to you about them, and they're now on you guys, right? And happy, but $24,000 on their OEM BS website. Then they're on SEO, SEM. They're doing paid social media on Facebook and Instagram. Then they have APIs for credit, APIs. They've got trade API. They got a chat API. All that crap comes up to $24,000. So here's the thing that just blows me away, is that a dealer could spend a tremendous amount of money on this, like tens of thousands of dollars in a month, okay? Divide it by, here's the punchline, 117 leads. That means the average cost per lead is $205. And then when I asked them, why are you doing this? And the answer is, well, because the manufacturer says to use this website, and I need SEO and I need SEM and I need this chat. And I'm saying, stop the madness. In a pandemic, you got to cut the fat. and I'm going to give you a chance to talk, but I want to frame this out because I want you to talk about this. You are the senior vice president of a multi-billion-dollar parent company, Internet Brands, and you're an advanced digital marketer. So help me make sense of this to the audience. Why do dealers keep pouring tons of money, and they might have VDPs or SRPs and leads and hits and pulses, but they don't translate into actionable tactical things that you could sell? In my opinion, you can't sell a car. You can't get a person approved through just a VDP or SRP. You need contact. You need engagement. So Todd, right or wrong, do you see this all the time in your neck of the woods?
Not only do we see it all the time, where it was rampant and where we've seen it the worst has been in the darling of digital marketing right now, social media marketing. And so what you ended up with was that when the digital ad agencies got a hold of the automotive industry, they figured out that they could put together a package, right? That bundled sale. And that they could give you website, SEO, SEM, PPC, whatever you want to call it. They would give you social media marketing and any other handful of other things that go along in this package. And then everybody says co-op eligible, right? But what they didn't really bring to the table and what a dealer didn't hold them accountable to, trust me, you walk in any dealership in America and you say, who of the third-party lead providers have you used? They're going to be able to walk you down a KPI stack of information that they know to the T that you would drop dead. Like, look, Internet Brands, we have this huge legal division. We have this huge health vertical. We recently bought WebMD. These guys, lawyers and doctors, don't know leads yet, right? They don't know this industry the way car dealers do and the way car dealers have been advanced for 20 years. Well, look, the ad agency got their hands on car dealers, and car dealers forgot who they were. And so they got this huge $10,000 package that somebody said was co-op eligible and forgot to hold the agency accountable to what's the output? What am I getting? What is the value? How many opportunities, real opportunities, whether they came through my phone number, which I better have, a Marchex number, a call tracking number that I'm using. How many, and then really what got big was, well, my website converts the most. Well, what was the traffic to your website? Well, where did they start? And then once they got to your website, what did they do? Did they bounce in a second? Do you have this really high bounce rate? Because that's garbage traffic. Is it someone who actually gave you their information? Were you able to get a name and a phone number and an email address? And then even take it a step further. So here's what we did in social media marketing. We looked at Facebook and Instagram and said, all right, what we see happening out there with these agencies is they're saying, oh, we'll give you 5 posts in a month. That doesn't mean anything. There's a lot of dealers out there, Sean, I'm sorry. They think, oh, all I got to do is go hire a millennial or a Gen Z who understands social media marketing and influencers, and then I'm doing social media marketing. Come on. That's not how it's done. It's done using big data, right? So what you do is you take 20 years of consumer information. So here's what we do. So we will go to Facebook.
Todd, no, again, you're killing them. So let me just dissect the part you just said here. So again, dealers, are you listening to this? Again, you have a situation where you're buying stuff and it's not ROI. Before I let Todd go through what he was just going to say, I want to reinforce this point here. If it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, quack, quack, it's a duck. Meaning, if you're spending $10,000, $20,000, but you don't have actual leads, either phone ups or email leads, if you don't have contact information, you don't have engagement, but all you have is like hits to your websites or views, or you have impressions, that's not enough. So Todd, jump in, and we didn't even get into how advanced the auto credit process is, where you're providing STIPs, you're providing paycheck stubs, you're providing proof of income, and you're taking it to a whole nother level, which I just think is amazing. So jump back into what you were going to say.
So, and again, if you were to think about close rates, and we talk about what this high range of close rates is, it comes down to, so if you're doing profile building, one of the things that you have to understand, and Facebook, again, is very good at this, and so dealers, listen to me. When you have a Facebook account, you have to link it to your Instagram account. It makes a huge difference. But so when you do this, and Facebook, a lot of dealers are savvy enough to have a Facebook pixel on their website. What that's doing is collecting consumer information. And then dealers also have, in a lot of cases, a database of consumer email addresses that they've gained over the years to people they sold cars to and people that they haven't sold cars to. Well, what you do is you package that information up, and with a company like ours, who is getting 250,000 consumers a month, you take that and you start to build an audience, right? And so you build an audience around a consumer profile. Facebook is very, very good. If I give them an email address of a consumer who has bad credit, somebody who is subprime, they can find me other people who are also subprime, and they are so good about it, it would blow your mind.
Lookalike audiences, right?
That's right. And so, but it doesn't work for everything, right? In some cases, what we've seen is, and don't let somebody come tell you a bill of goods that, oh, well, I can find Toyota buyer for you. No, you can't. Toyota Camry buyer is every human on the planet, right? You can't build a lookalike audience because unfortunately what happens is it's everyone, right? And what we're trying to do is get to a very specific demographic. So if you want to find soccer mom for your mid-size SUV, that's a very precise, specific demographic. You can get to that person. If you want to find truck buyer, if you want to find luxury car buyer, there's a demographic at the model level that you look at, and then you take that information, you give it to Facebook, and then, again, and this is something that there's a very inconvenient truth happening here. There's some documentary that's on Netflix that everybody's been talking about lately. And really what it's all about is, the social media has invaded us and they're getting all of this information from us. But what it is it's for marketing purposes, right? And yes, in some cases, we may find that it goes too far. But in some cases, what you find, though, is it's really helpful from an advertising perspective. When I'm a dealer and I'm going to go spend $3,000 a month on a social media marketing campaign, if I can do that to a very precise demographic, and then those consumers not only give me their information, but are willing to even fill out a full form application, give you their social security number, give you their GMI, use text messaging to send you 30 days worth of pay stubs, you've targeted the right consumer. And that's super, super powerful. That was what the internet was supposed to bring us. That's where we are.
Man, that's powerful as hell. Okay, so because I could keep you on here for hours, but I know that you're busy doing like billion-dollar things and stuff like that. So can you go back, because we didn't talk about this, we only touched on it, the things that are imperative for special finance. From my experience, to be successful in special finance, besides having the best quality of leads and opportunities through companies like Auto Credit Express, one is inventory. You need inventory with cars that book out so you can max profit.
And I have a tool that can help with that. Let you hear from VinCue real quick.
Don't be the last one with your hand up at the auction. VinCue Vehicle Buying Center gives dealers the digital and in-store tools you need to buy direct from the public. On average, inventory bought from the public grosses $1,200 higher on the front end alone. VinCue turns buying cars direct from the public into a business. The most profitable dealerships in the country are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in additional front-end gross. Private party acquisition starts with VinCue. See it at VinCue.com.
Okay, Sean, what else do they need?
Besides inventory, you need the right lenders and a diversified list of lenders. Now, it's great to be able to use your franchise, like if you're like Kia or Hyundai, to use your OEM's financing, but you also need to have diversified financing. What advice do you give as Auto Credit Express to dealers that say, hey, you know what, Todd, I heard this podcast and I'm interested in Auto Credit Express leads, but we're just not set up for that. How do we get started?
So, one of the things that we have is this dealer area marketing tool. And so the first thing that we'll do is we'll talk to a dealer to show them, here are the top lenders from the top subprime dealers in your area. So we get a cut of data from Experian, and then we also are getting data now from Dealer Vault. Authenticom is, I think, their ownership company. And so what we're doing with that data is we're able to pinpoint in any market in the country, here is who the top subprime dealers are. Here's what the average FICO of those consumers is. Here's what that top inventory is. And here's who those top lenders are, whether they be captive finance or independent lenders, lenders, again, like Credit Acceptance, Westlake, Exeter, the ones that really dive deep into subprime. And so it's about understanding. And what we'll say is, we talk about total addressable market. How many dealers in the country have a subprime finance manager, right? And so in a lot of cases, that's how we'll delineate whether or not that dealership is actually a subprime dealership, is do they have somebody who specializes in subprime? Because you got to know each of these pieces and how they come together. And so you need to know if that 2018, 2019 Nissan Sentra is the one that's going to be the 5 banger for you because you did it through Kia Finance. And so that's what we're able to do, is educate the dealer first and foremost on here's who's having the most success and here's why. Here's who the lenders are. Here's what that inventory is that they're working with, and be able to kind of match that with the consumer piece. And some of the things that I think you guys really help dealers with is so there's the 3 legs of the stool that go to selling a car to a subprime consumer. But there's also, what is the right process to get there? Amen. Who is the CRM that I'm using? Do I need a BDC? What does the comp plan of a BDC person need to be? What does the comp plan of my internet department need to be? What are the motivations of each of those individuals? That there's so much that Dealer Synergy has brought to the table over the years to help educate dealers and turn them into real profitable internet departments, right? And I don't even like saying internet departments. It's just a real profitable business at the car dealership today, right? At one point we were talking about, well, what does your internet department do when you talked about the mix of sales within a dealership? Well, you don't even say that anymore, right? It is the profit center, right? Every consumer is coming through that way. And so you have to know what you're doing, and that comes through experience. And so what do? You go hire the best. You go get the people who have been doing it for decades and decades, who understand what they're doing. That's how you get there.
So if I'm understanding clearly, not only does Auto Credit Express provide the highest quality special finance traffic, the way that you do that is because you've been doing this for over 20 plus years. And you said that you get over 250,000 special finance inquiries on a monthly basis. So you're just storing all of that data, all those profiles into all of your secret behind the scenes, like storage center, like for big data, right? And you're building these profiles, you're building these audiences. Now you've mastered at corporate the way to find and generate special finance traffic. But because you guys are such subject matter experts, you have the ability to help dealerships at any level, whether they've never done special finance before. You could help advise them with what banks, what inventory. You have partners like us, the Dealer Synergy, that can help them with setting up their CRM the appropriate way with the CRM action plans, CRM templates, CRM drip campaigns, CRM follow-up process. We could help the dealerships, with the outbound special finance process, inbound special finance process, objections, rebuttals. We're able to get all that in place. So all they've got to do, honestly, is sign and drive and count their money, correct?
That's right. And let's take this just even one step further. Sean in LA, listen to me right now.
Yes, sir.
When you've been doing this for this many years, you also start to find other opportunities just even within subprime. So two areas, and we'll tell all of the listeners right now, I hope everybody is really paying attention here. Start thinking about the underserved Spanish-speaking community. Amen. And stop being afraid of the bankruptcy. These are two areas within Subprime that I am telling you right now are huge profit centers. Explain. I mean, unbelievable opportunities. Whether you're a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13, whether you're a Spanish speaker and you're from Mexico or you're from Central America, it matters. There are different dialects. But guess what? Not everybody knows that. How do you figure these things out? How do you find these opportunities within the opportunities that are bringing the biggest grosses? And how do you serve those communities the best? You work with companies who have been doing it for over a couple of decades.
Wow. LA, is this strong or what, man?
Extremely strong. And see, like you said, it's the whole seeing around corners thing. And so many people know that in order to be extremely successful, that's something that you got to do. Well, Todd just broke it down to you. He said exactly what you got to do. You don't even have to see around corners. You just listen to the Millionaire Car Salesman podcast and we break it down to you. So, man, that was absolutely phenomenal, Todd, man. Breaking it down so that people can see and giving them the secrets that they need in order to, take 2021 and 2022 beyond by storm. So,
hey, LA, I think I know the title of this podcast. It's going to be something like Special Finance Secrets from a VP of a multi-billion-dollar company. Something like that. So, Todd, I
love it. There you go. That's it.
That's it. Subprime secrets or special finance secrets from a VP of a multi-billion-dollar company. Now, Todd, can you explain this special finance social media product that Auto Credit Express is doing? Because the dealers that are on this are absolutely crushing it. And so I got to be honest with you, I kind of understand it, but here, let me make sure I understand it correctly and just correct me or jump in or elaborate. But from what I'm understanding is because you've developed these profiles of these 250,000 people per month that they're giving you their email addresses. So you're able to load all those into Facebook's ad manager or Facebook and Instagram, their mechanism, and you're able to create lookalikes from there. And what are you able to do? So you're using social media to generate ridiculously profitable special finance leads. Is that correct? How does that work? What is the mechanics?
That's right. So, when you go to build an audience within social media marketing, the most important piece of information, so it's just think about the consumer. I want everybody to take a second and think about what they do in social media, whether you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're on, it can even be TikTok, WhatsApp. You name the social media platform, they're generating information from every single user. Everything you do, everything you like, everything you navigate to, everything you watch, all of those things are data points. And so those data points all come together to build a profile. And so what becomes very powerful is, again, I'm going to go spend my marketing dollars. And we know, and this is a great thing about social media marketing, the manufacturers are all over it. And so when you've got co-op dollars, and trust me, go check with your local manufacturer's rep, and they will tell you. And trust me, so a couple of years ago, we did a deal with SCA. And we became the digital solution for FCA. Now, it was out of a different division. It was automotive. It was our data and licensing division, and we ultimately sold it off, and that was great. And it was really for us eye-opening. But so what we found out, though, when we got in, and I spent more days, up at the corporate office there at FCA in Michigan with, the snow blowing sideways in my ear hole, going into the building there in Auburn Hills. But so, I'll tell you that what we found out was the manufacturer has more co-op dollars available to the dealer. And now through the pandemic, and social media marketing is the darling. It's the best part of all of this. I can go spend $3,000 and I'm getting 1-to-1 and sometimes even 2-to-1 back from the manufacturer for my ad dollar. And I'm also building allocation on, and trust me, all of the OEMs. So again, we're a big digital media company. We own a lot of automotive related websites. One of them is called Green Car Reports. And if you saw the energy being built around the green car initiative, right? Electric vehicles, all of the OEMs have a huge lineup of them coming right now. But so what you do, though, is find out that the OEMs are spending an inordinate amount of money. They're giving dealers this money to go do digital advertising, but it's got to have certain elements, right? And so how do you figure out what ad is the right ad to go post on Facebook? Some of what people don't know is if I just say number one bad credit will get anyone approved in Facebook, you're going to get flagged. And when you get flagged by Facebook, basically what happens is they eliminate your ability to precisely target a certain audience. Because what they say to you is, hey, we can't be exclusionary. And so if you're profiling to exclude a certain group or a certain zip code, that's a problem. We're not going to let you do that. But guess what? Dealer doesn't know that. Even a lot of the ad agencies don't know that. So you have to create an ad that's co-op eligible. So that has to have certain elements, right? There's seasonality that goes to it. You have to have certain models that get represented. It changes every single month. You have to be careful in the taglines and your call to action. If your CTA isn't right, you get flagged. And the next thing you know, my marketing's not working. Why am I not getting anybody? Again, you got to have the expertise. You got to know what you're doing here. And so these are the things that we're learning that we've put to use over these last couple of years. It really, the stuff that we're doing, this real innovative stuff with social media marketing, it has been within these last 12 months. Since the pandemic, these are the things that we've spent a ton of time working to figure out. And I can tell you that dealers are just absolutely killing it. We have dealers that are running subprime campaigns. They're running campaigns to the Spanish-speaking community. They're running campaigns against the soccer mom demographic. I mean, you name it, and they're doing so well. And what are we doing? We're branding and promoting the dealership, not some third-party company, not just the OEM. It's the dealership. Right? And that is so important. And so now I'm spending my ad dollars finally branding my store, and I'm able to use co-op funds, and I'm able to target exactly the way that I want to. So again, these are some of the things that we've been able to do to help dealers. Okay.
So I've got just a couple last questions because we're definitely got to wind it down. This is a big one. And again, I really am grateful that I get to ask you this because we started in the beginning of this podcast talking about how Cars Direct's, the direct model. At one point, you were selling thousands of cars, remotely, through your BDC. What is your opinion of this pandemic? Because it definitely has legitimately changed consumers. Before the pandemic, yes, people were using video, they were using Zoom, they were using GoToMeeting, but now, I mean, like us, we're doing this, on Zoom. There's so many more people that want and need and crave this easier form of communication. Like I do my grocery shopping now, Todd, through my refrigerator. I have a Samsung smart refrigerator. It tells me when there's no milk and it orders more milk. So,
by the way, you've made it, everybody, when your refrigerator tells you when you're out of milk.
I guess so. But you've got to see, because you've got thousands and thousands of rooftop clients that are out there. From your perspective, on the top of that multi-billion-dollar mound that you're standing on, what are you seeing as far as like habits and trends? Whether it's special finance or it's new or used car leads, people are submitting purchase requests. Okay, how do you see the consumer's behavior? From what I hear, dealers are more profitable than ever. They have higher grosses. Yes, there's an inventory issue, but if people are coming to the dealerships, they're not kicking tires. They want to buy. So from your perspective, from internet brands, what would you say that the buying, shopping habits are of America right now?
Yeah, well, so a couple of things. So first, from a macroeconomic perspective, we saw car sales in 2020 were down about 14.5%. The rebound is supposed to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 16% in 2021. And so car buyers coming back. I know one of the things that we're seeing in big major metros across the country is they're shunning public transportation. There are more and more consumers purchasing vehicles than we've ever seen.
You killing it.
Yo, no, you're right. Wait a minute, Todd. Wait a minute. I wasn't even going there. Man, remember right before the pandemic, people were talking about like carpooling, and they were talking about like these membership programs, and all the like those business models just disintegrated.
Yeah, dude. I'm at a carpool with an Uber that's going to self-drive me to work. That's not happening anymore.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. So yeah, people are not trying to be in the same small, close quarter combat with germs and stuff like that. That's a very good point.
No, and so some of the other stuff we started to do was think about, as we present vehicles online, what's important to the consumer. And so what we've seen has been things like, what is this dealer's sales process? And so, what you'll see through our site, you'll see it through a lot of other sites now as well, is does that dealership offer delivery? Almost all of them do at this stage, and don't let them charge you for it. And then is it a sanitized process, right? Consumers have been very interested in, I love it. I know what a Jeep Wrangler is. I want you to deliver it to my door, but I also want to know that it's not full of coronavirus. And so, there's a process that dealers have wrapped their arms around to really try and understand what the consumer's new wants and needs are. And I'll tell you what, dealers are delivering on it. They're doing a fantastic job of understanding what those consumers' needs are. But not all of them, right? Like, this is where process becomes so important. I am terrified right now of that salesperson who's texting with a consumer. They need to make sure they're TCPA compliant. They need to make sure that they are also educated and know, am I supposed to, and Sean, like you and I talk about this stuff all the time, am I supposed to quote the price for the vehicle to this consumer in text? Should I give them a value on their trade online? What do I need to do here? And it's those process questions that I think dealers really need to become educated on. Do I need to have a BDC today? What does that digital process need to look like so I can have that very high close ratio that we're all talking about and enjoy these really big grosses that are available right now? And so it really just comes back to, who am I using? What is my technology stack? How have I trained my folks? How am I deploying that? And why? How is that different for me in this Nissan dealership in Philadelphia than it is for that Toyota dealership in Tysons Corner, Virginia, than it is for that BMW dealership in Monrovia, California? Because what I'm telling you is it's different in every place. And so you have to understand that there is process that you can replicate that can take the guesswork out of it. That's where you need to become educated.
Yeah, Todd, I'm be honest with you, man. You just straight killed it. Here's what I want to do. So the last question is first of all, second to last question. How long have you been in the automotive industry total now?
I am now 30 years.
Okay, so this is a great question. Is with your 30 years of experience, at multiple levels, what advice do you have in January 2021 to automotive dealerships and automotive professionals to be successful? So I know it's hard in only 3 to 5 minutes to do this, but just take your last 30 years and where we're at today in today's climate with the pandemic and this crazy election and everything else. How does an automotive professional and how does a dealer principal be effective, successful, and profitable from today moving forward?
Again, I'll just say educate yourself, right? I think that everybody starts their day in a certain place. They have goals for themselves and they say, I'm going to go out there and kill it today. But they don't have a good plan. And so that plan needs to start with research and education. And then you have to build that plan and then follow it through. You have to do it every day. You have to stay disciplined to staying with the plan. We have people all around us who will tell us the right path to take, the way to do it. But then you have to stay disciplined to doing it every single day. You know, Sean, it wasn't so long ago when we were looking at, again, it was related to the FCA deal that we did. And I was asking you questions about BDCs because we were running into store after store that didn't understand the right approach to take. And you guys helped us tremendously. We were able to give Chrysler this information that helped them understand their dealerships better about how to have the right process. And for me, you know, again, education, a process you can replicate, a plan, staying disciplined, and stay within the boundaries. Don't color outside of the lines, right? You start coloring outside of the lines, and the next thing you know, you just went underwater on that trade. You've got to make sure that you're following the right path, have discipline to staying to that path. But I promise you, there are two guys on the phone right now that I am talking to on this podcast that have achieved unbelievable things amidst the most incredible circumstances. There has been obstacle after obstacle, and where are they? I just talked to a guy who told me that his refrigerator tells him when he's out of milk. And do you know where Sean started? Let's think about that, folks. And Sean, how did you get there? You got there because you had a passion, you educated yourself, you created a plan, and you had discipline. Is that right?
Yes. And listen, first of all, I have such tremendous respect for you. Just, you know, again, I'm not from the corporate world. I'm a street kid. I'm a car salesman. And it means the world for me, what you just said, the fact that a multi-billion-dollar company is looking at my company to provide value to a major OEM on a national level. And then you just said that on this podcast. I don't tell people all that, you know what I mean? That's between us and stuff like that. But man, to have someone like you at your caliber with your company and what you've done. I mean, you just said very casually, Ella, like I said, I just bought some gum. He said, you were like, I heard you bought WebMD. Okay. So my refrigerator might tell me when I'm out of milk, but you just bought WebMD. So
well, and I'll tell you what, and that one was expensive. It had a couple of B's behind it.
So dealers, listen to this. So when you have a multi-billion-dollar company buying other companies for multiple B's, you're talking to a G right here. You know what I mean? So Todd, how did I do it? Two reasons. My number one motivation, and we haven't talked about this, is I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to be broke. I didn't want to be in poverty, and I didn't want my kids to. So that's what motivated me. And I got to just tell you that what I love about our industry is our industry keeps it real. Meaning, if you are not a performer, you're gonna get washed out pretty quickly. But if you seize the opportunity in automotive sales, you literally have the opportunity to make as much money as you could earn. And as you've seen me from my starting in my career to where I'm at right now with a national radio show and all this other stuff, is that we are all capable of greatness. We're all capable of doing profound things, but we have to have the desire, the discipline, and the tenacity to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. But everyone has that.
Yes.
They have it in them, right? It's just a conscious decision to do it, and you make that conscious decision every day.
100%.
Absolutely. LA.
So,
Thoughts? Wait a minute, LA, did you take like a break right here? I mean, like, it was just me and Todd talking the whole time. What's wrong, man?
I was chilling.
He's trying to get me. He's trying to get a check from me. You know what I'm saying? But he ain't putting that work. Do something, LA.
He's soaking it in. You know what he's doing right now, Sean? He's watching football, which is something you and I need to go start doing.
You know what? I don't even know if did the Bills do it or not.
I'm confident that they did. They were up like 24-16.
Oh my God! Here's a little score.
But it got close, right? Like I heard that the Colts were coming back.
Yeah, no, they won it by 3 points though. But a win is a win.
Oh, did they really? Wow, that's awesome.
All right, listen, Todd. Again, thank you so much for sharing your profound, expertise and your background, especially with special finance. And I hope that we've converted some of our listeners to understanding that there is a lot of opportunity with special finance. And we didn't even talk about the emotional side of things of how much help that dealers are providing to people, because getting a car when you need one is pretty significant to go to the grocery store or to go to the doctors or what have you. So,
well, let's talk about repairing America's credit, right? That's what car dealers are helping people do. They're helping them get back on their feet. They're helping them get back out there and lower that unemployment rate. They're getting jobs because they're able to get in a car, because a car dealer cared enough to figure out who they are and put all the education together to make sure that they got them a car that they could love, that would be reliable, that they could afford. Absolutely.
Yo, LA, Todd Dearborn for president, 2024.
Hey, I'm smart enough to know I don't want that job.
No, amen to that. I love social media too much. I ain't getting banned.
Yeah, that's great.
LA, some closing thoughts from you, sir. Give you a good recap what you got out of it. I'd like to hear from the blind master.
Well, first of all, what Todd said, that was the best breakdown of them all. Because I spend time in dealerships and I talk specifically to these customers, and, I know the challenges that they're faced with. And, when we're able to solve those challenges, man, I'm telling you, I love what you said, repairing America's credit, right? Repairing really America, period, because there's so many people that don't have an opportunity. Why? I can't get around. Or this is going on. I lost my job. Why? Because I didn't have a car, or, different things like that. Man, dealers, you have an opportunity to make sure that America continues to be great. So, and that's not a Trump support thing. I just was trying to tell you. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, listen, this has been the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
So there you have it, the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. This podcast comes to you every week from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you have a question about the show or would like the chance to become a guest, feel free to contact us directly at 856-546-2440 or email us at millionairecarsalesman@gmail.com. This program is a presentation of Synergy Records, produced by Jason Caleri and Karen Bradley. Production and engineering by L.A. Williams. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast is hosted every week by L.A. Williams and the Millionaire Car Salesman himself, Sean V. Bradley. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast can be found everywhere, so please don't forget to review, subscribe to, and share the show. Thanks for listening to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, and remember, where I'm from, money provides options. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast is sponsored in part by Scar Food, Bradley On Demand, and Dealer Synergy. If you enjoyed this podcast, then make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave us a review. Let some other folks know about it. Oh, and don't forget to join the Millionaire Car Salesman group on Facebook. We'll see you there.